And greetings and welcome to what's really going to be a makeshift edition of the Steve Deace Show here today on BlazeTV radio and podcast. I'm Steve Deace, still down here in Dallas, about to hop on a plane. More about that here in a minute. Todd, Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, they're back there in our studio in Des Moines. We're brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They got a flavor for every freedom-loving American. If you want to check them out today, they put the roast date right there on every single bag. That way you know that it was shipped to you within days of being roasted. They make outstanding coffee, and they do it while sharing your values at the exact same time. So make the switch today to our friends over at First Cup when you go to firstcup.com. Use the promo code DEACE to get 10% off, and you get an additional 10% off for the life of your subscription as well. Firstcup.com. Use the promo code DEACE. Also want to mention, if you see some of the Blaze swag, maybe you saw us debut some of the post-debate stuff last night with part of our exclusive coverage on Blaze TV. Great opportunity to get hooked up with Blaze merchandise. And we've got a brand new show logo that the Blaze was kind enough to let us design for ourselves. Get involved with our great swag at shopblazemedia.com. That's shopblazemedia.com. Use the code STEVE10 to get 10% off your entire order at shopblazemedia.com. Use the code STEVE10. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the show today and why it looks and sounds this way, if you're watching on YouTube or Blaze TV, I want to just say this to a man I have an immense amount of respect for, and truly one of the best public servants of this era. Our condolences to Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who announced this morning that his wife passed away. It appears to be sudden. We don't really know any other details yet, but just an awful story. And we just wanted to pass along our prayers and sympathies to truly one of the great public servants we have in America right now, in Congressman Thomas Massie. And great public servants in most eras of human history are rare. But when you're in the kind of era that we are in right now, late stage republic nonsense, Romans 1 judgment, a godless era of everyone does what is wise in their own eyes, they're even more rare. And we were given a very stark reminder of this last night. And that's first and foremost why the show looks like this today. I was actually supposed to be home tonight. I've got a family event. The Blaze asked me to make an exception with that event to get down here for the debate. I, of course, honored that request, but that threw my schedule off. We weren't even sure we were going to have any show at all. We made the decision, given the urgency of the moment, to come in here a little bit early. So you should know I'm actually taping this earlier than it will air live, earlier in the morning. I'm in a nice hotel, but it's one of those modern industrial looks, so you don't have the greatest lighting and background, so forgive that. And I forgot my microphone, so forgive me. But we just thought, given the urgency of the moment and the history that is unfolding right now as we speak, that we needed to come in here a little bit early this morning before I had to head back home and catch a plane. So I'm there for my family later, that we had to address this. So I'm here in kind of a makeshift environment in my hotel room. Why did I not just go over to the Blaze 10 minutes away? There's no studio available for me this time of the morning. So I'm doing it here from my hotel room. Todd and Aaron are back there. And then they're going to take over the second hour and as live and take over the commentary from there. But I just wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity here to empty the tank before I jumped on a plane. Because a lot is going to change, I think, between here now and Monday. And a lot is unfolding and happening as we speak. For example, about an hour before we started the tape, we saw the extraordinary step, a good friend of mine, but a member of the United States Congress, Chip Roy of Texas, announced he's going to call for a resolution on the House floor demanding the Vice President and the Cabinet invoke the 25th Amendment due to the incapacitation of the President. And the kinds of things that we have been discussing on shows like this as possibilities are now realities. And there's an old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. We have lived through some very interesting times here these last 4 years. and you ain't seen nothing yet, it appears. So I don't want to spend too much time breaking down what occurred last night. We all, I assume, watched it. You watched it. Tens of millions did. The world watched it. I did that for how many hours on the Blaze last night? What's unfolding now is what we told you ahead of time would unfold if Biden's dementia at any point shined through. Now, what I did not anticipate, even though I anticipated the reaction we are now seeing if the dementia flashed itself, but what I did not anticipate is that it would not just flash itself, it would be omnipresent. At no point was there a competent individual on that stage last evening. At no point. At no point was there anybody that could win any form of a competency hearing in any corporate lawsuit. At any point was there anyone that could win a custody hearing for a child. At any point was there a president who could get a driver's license. The president of the United States is incapacitated and incompetent. That's not a meme. That's not a joke. That's not a troll. I mean, we're being trolled and the joke is on us, but it is nevertheless all true. And what I did not anticipate was that from the jump, that with basically a week, they took the president off the board for a week and put him into Camp David with debate prep. Who knows what that entailed, how many injections that was. But there was a shot before the debate of the president doing some rounds with basically a rope line, pardon me. And you could just see the face of the president was bad. Last year, our beloved dog, Cap, short for Captain America, was diagnosed with early on-stage dementia, just began behaving erratically. And as time has gone on, now he'll just, sit, studiously and just stare off into space. We have no idea what he's staring at. He'll ask to go out all the time and then come right back in. He'll have night terrors and panics because the dementia is escalating. And, we're all as a family wrestling with, how much longer to let this go on before, it becomes unmerciful. Right now, he still has most of his days, he's still alert and tail wagging and happy, but once the sun goes down, the clock starts ticking, and so we've been having those heartbreaking conversations as a family all year long. But the look that Cap has, the eyes, the glossy eyes that Cap has, is exactly what normie America saw from the President of the United States. It's what the world saw. It's what our enemies in Pyongyang, Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, it's what they saw. And it's no longer a joke. It's no longer a campaign theme. It's no longer an issue. It is a full-blown crisis for the country. This goes beyond the election. We are at least 7 months before Donald Trump could take office anyway. We can't have a known, Steve, we've all known this. We've all known this, guys. We are a sliver of a sector. And then there's a great big world out there, okay? We've known this. The hundreds of thousands of it that we reach a day on the Blaze know this. It's a country of 360 million people. It's a world of 7.5 billion people. You may suspect something. You might suspect your husband is cheating on you. He works late, takes showers as soon as he comes home. He doesn't seem as interested in intimacy time with you as he used to. And you may think and suspect and be even confident okay? You might even see a lipstick, stain on a collar, okay? And the evidence is all there. It is entirely another thing to come home and see him with his mistress in your bed live and in real time, all right? So you may suspect something, you may joke about it, you may know it, okay? But then you're confronted with it. And the American people were, and right from the beginning, from the way he walked out onto the stage, to after the event when his wife has to help him off the stage. He cannot do the stairs going down, which is common for elderly people. More accidents with elderly folks that have cognitive impairment happen on the stairs going down the stairs than going up. And now the whole world knows it. And everybody, gaslighting is confirmed. And now what you are watching What you're watching is the inverse of what our show chronicled in the waning days leading up to Super Tuesday, when Bernie Sanders was this close to becoming the nominee of the Democratic Party. And they knew if you nominate, you can be a socialist, you can even be a Marxist. But if you package America, even in our current state, if you package America, the kind of Soviet who takes his shoe off like Khrushchev at the UN and bangs them on the podium at you, you're getting leveled. It'll destroy your party. And they knew that. They could not nominate the packaging of Bernie Sanders, a screaming Soviet. So what did they do? To borrow Todd's term, they necromanced Joe Biden in real time. And we all watched it at the time. He's now winning states he never visited by double digits, just like a Thanos snap. Their entire media, messaging, institutional, industrial complex, a button was pushed, they went into action, they mobilized a singular message. Joe Biden is your nominee. Bernie Sanders is out. Same thing that happened to get Trump to lock down in March of 2020. You're watching this happen now. Folks, we were an hour into the debate, and major corporate media figures were already sowing the seed for this. But the seeds for this were even planted before the debate. Axios is basically a mouthpiece of the Democratic Party. And yesterday before the debate, out of nowhere, to quote Nefarious, probably just a coincidence, out of nowhere, Axios decides to run a story about a 9-year grudge that Michelle Obama has had against the Bidens because of the way they treated Hunter's ex-wife. No one knew anything about this. Nothing had even been rumored. I mean, hell, Barack Obama is literally holding Joe Biden's hand last week in Hollywood. And out of nowhere, the morning of the debate, here's Axios with a scoop. Yeah, Michelle Obama really thinks the Bidens are, scum, basically. Not a coincidence. That doesn't mean that this will be seamless. That doesn't mean that the Bidens will easily go, but go they will. And they're already gone. It's just a matter of how much more water everybody wants to take on to make this happen. Steve, there's no device for this. You can't just automatically, folks. I want to make sure before I leave here this morning and hand it off to my very capable associates, I want to make sure there's some meta themes that you understand about the ecosystem of American politics. Okay? Number one is you need to understand that Democrats are not like us. We were talking yesterday on Theology Thursday that we cannot personify God. We cannot project our human traits upon God. We can't do that. We are his mirror image. He is not ours. We are a mere reflection of him. He is not ours. So nor can we, as Republicans or right of centerists or non-communists, whatever you want to call yourself, conservative, patriot, conservative with no home, whatever, if you're not identified as a Democrat, all right, then you live a different political ecosystem than they do. They are not like us. Your will to power is all that matters over there. All that matters over there is will to power. Will to power is all, and all is will to power. So just as we watched them necromance Joe Biden, you're now watching them lay him to rest. It's just a matter of time. There is a much better chance that Joe Biden will be removed by the 25th Amendment than he will be reelected. He's not electable. Not happening. I told you 24 hours ago, what scares me about this election is I don't know what the margin of cheating is. I don't need to know what it is. They will have no polling narrative. They will have nothing. And they know this. They don't have a narrative to run on. They cannot run on their record. And so their fallback, Obama didn't have a great record in 2012 either. But they have created a fail-safe mechanism for winning elections, their record be damned. And it's called racial and identity idolatry. They don't have that right now. That doesn't mean Trump's going to win the black vote, but if the election were today, I bet you'd win 25% of it. And that's coming from the mocking the brothers be flipping guy. That doesn't mean we're going to, the Hispanics are going to completely move over to Republicans, but I'll bet you if the election today, Trump would win 40 to 45% of them, minimum. And the thing that you run into if you're the Democrats is they know that on things like marriage amendments, black and brown people tend to vote our way. They know that on cultural issues, black and brown people are actually much more aligned with us than Pete Buttigieg. They know this. That's why I kept telling you Pete Buttigieg was never going to be the nominee. Because black Americans are like, nope. Nope. Not going with the Charge of the Light and Loafers Brigade. That ain't happening. Nope. That's why he's Secretary of Transportation instead. They know this. The problem is their record is bad. Minority communities and cities are being devastated. But they have the fallback of the racial identity idolatry. But now you're going to tell those people that are suffering, but we now need you to vote for an openly senile white guy with a black woman waiting in the wings. But we need you to vote for this senile white guy who can't do the job and you all just saw is incapacitated. No. What happens when you do that is you risk a permanent fracture in your coalition. The hardest thing to do is for someone to violate an idolatry the first time, to go against a subculture the first time, to be the first one. It gets easier after that. And if you suffer a fracture of their racial identity idolatry, you risk a significant segment of those people never coming back. Oh, maybe the Republicans aren't our racist. And I kind of like not paying, top marginal tax rates. Kind of cool. Not having my kid murdered. I like that. Just stick with that, I guess. They can't risk that. And they know that. And that's why you're seeing them act out now. That's why MSNBC, Nicole Wallace had Joe Biden dead. No one carries more water for him than in the corporate media than she does. She pronounced last rites 5 minutes after this debate last night. You're just watching this all play out. They're not like us. They do not let silly things like laws, constitutions, traditions, conventional wisdoms, mechanisms, devices. They don't do that. They don't care how their enemies will react. See, on the Republican side, what happens is it is what result will the process let us achieve? It starts with the process. What's achievable, and then we'll go for the result. On the Democratic side, it's what is the result, and then we will just work the process to get us the result that we want. It's a completely different habitat. They just operate differently. And that's why he's gone. If he's not gone, they will suffer a 1932 type of loss. What do I mean by that? That's the Hoover election, where you're essentially asking your entire party to gaslight the American people. No, you're not seeing sandstorms wipe out rural America. No, you're not seeing soup lines. No, you didn't watch the stock market crash. No, you're not seeing 25% unemployment. It took 20 years for the Republican Party to dig out of that. And it only dug out of that pit because they found a way to nominate America's greatest war hero since George Washington, Dwight Eisenhower. The same thing happened to the Democratic Party with Jimmy Carter. It took them almost 20 years to come out of that pit. They didn't win another national election until 1992. And they had to completely rebrand themselves. And frankly, the Bill Clinton of 1992, in some respects, had more right of center messaging than Donald Trump is running on right now. They had to totally reinvent themselves. Go watch the messaging of 1988, Michael Dukakis said in a debate, well, if someone kidnaps my wife and rapes her to death, I wouldn't want the death penalty for him. 1992, Bill Clinton, 3 strikes and you're out, we're executing everybody, and Sister Soldier, get off the stage. They had to totally reinvent themselves after what happened with Jimmy Carter. And that will happen to the Democratic Party right here if they let him on the ballot, which is why they're not going to do it. 1932, 1976 kind of loss. We also have to understand that we are not in control of this process, and we never have been this entire time. I got my phone, and as you can even imagine, I didn't get to sleep till almost 2 a.m. last night. Blows up 6:30 this morning. I've been, on everything all morning long, especially since Chip invoked the 25th Amendment. We have not been in control of this process from the beginning, going back to the primary. I mean, they effectively used lawfare to end the primary to make sure we nominated someone that still most Americans don't want to have to vote for. There are 2 driving impulses in this election as of right now. And they were going back and forth between which was going to be the main driver. Most Americans don't want to have to vote for Donald Trump again. Most Americans don't think Joe Biden can do the job again. These have been the two driving impulses of this environment electorally. And they've gone back and forth. Well, now one is way out in front. We saw a senile president on the stage. Now, that's way out in front now. And the Trump narrative has taken a definitive backseat. That doesn't mean it's gone, though. But they've been in control of this process since they put forth a lawfare process that effectively ended the nomination. Go back and look at the Real Clear Politics polling average on March 30th of last year between DeSantis and Trump, and then go and look at it on April 30th, and you're like, what in the world happened? Well, March 31st, Alvin Bragg indicted Donald Trump, ended the primary. We know that now. Probably looking back on it, should have known it then, and probably in my case allowed my adoration for what DeSantis has done as governor to blind me to that fact, and I was maybe smoking too much opium. But we definitely, whether that's true or not, we definitely know for sure it's a fact now after it played out that way. And they're in control of the process now. They're going to lay Biden to rest. If they invoke the 25th Amendment, Kamala will be president. She'll have to be their nominee. Which is why, by the way, if you're a Republican and you're pissed at what Chip did, he did you a favor. Because she would be the weakest possible successor candidate that they could nominate. Now, she is a much stronger candidate right now than Joe Biden. Because she can at least talk. Not well, but understandable. It wouldn't have taken Kamala Harris 45 minutes to call Donald Trump a convicted felon, as it did Joe Biden last night. And we think that he did that at 45 minutes into the debate, but we're not sure, because we don't know we're not sure about what the hell he said the entire debate. If they nominate Kamala Harris, what you will see them do is run their most racially, it'll make Obama's era look like a class reunion. They will run the most racially divisive campaign of all time. Because even if they still lose to Trump, and they could very well, at least she gives them the best chance to keep their racial identity idolatry coalition intact. The first black woman. They will use the convention, and up until the debate on September 29th, they will Michelle Obama her in branding. Now, once that debate begins, she's on her own. And she may collapse in front of the American people. But that won't impose on their racial identity idolatry coalition. Because now there's a black woman to vote for. Those 18% of black men that voted for Donald Trump in 2020, he's not getting that this time. Because their black women are going to say, no, you ain't. She keeps that coalition intact. Now, white suburbanites might be like, come on, man. Really? But you know what? That's a singularity loss. You can put up with that. You lost swing voters, which are white suburbanites. Okay. It doesn't permanently damage your coalition the way keeping Joe Biden does. It risks that. So what then should we do? Well, we're not in control of this process at all. But that doesn't mean we don't have control over anything. I think what needs to happen right now is there's a leadership void in the country. And I think Donald Trump needs to take advantage of this window that he has right now and behave as he did last night for the most part. I mean, there was that moment where they argued back and forth like two guys at a nursing home about their golf handicaps, but for the most part, Trump was very reserved, restrained. There were a couple of moments, frankly, of artistic or of rhetorical flourish from Trump that were not trolls, but a really effective political messaging, like the January 6th question. And Trump said on January 6th, the border wasn't wide open. On January 6th, inflation wasn't 20%. I mean, I thought that was freaking phenomenal. There was another moment when they asked him about retribution. He said, my retribution will be the success of the country. Another great, that's the stuff we didn't see from Trump before, the ability to flip a premise and turn it around ideologically and intellectually. You know, before he just got out of things with trolls. Pardon me again here, it's a little early in the morning.
You saw that on January, the January 6th answer as well. You saw that on the January 6th answer.
Yes.
This again, I'm trying to say this prescriptively, descriptively, not prescriptively. Say what you want. We were still dealing with the fallout of COVID and what have you, but he flipped the script on the J6 question. On J6, this, and this were true, regardless of whether they actually were. But this, and true, they aren't now, and there's only one guy to blame for that.
Yep. I mean, there were moments where, he was able to actually flip things the way a president should and not just troll his way out of it. Public needs to see more of that. I would not do a bunch of rallies where you riff. I would go and do presidential events. I'd be touring coal plants in Pennsylvania. I'd be touring manufacturing companies in Michigan. I would step into the void. I would act as if I'm president. I'd go meet with foreign leaders that were friendly to me. Even if it's Viktor Orban in Hungary, get that photo op. Act and behave as a president right now. In every way other than setting policy. Go meet with Benjamin Netanyahu right now. Go over to Israel, meet with Netanyahu. Step into the void, act as as the president right now. Who knows how long this void, I think it's 20, 50%? I don't know what it is, but I do think there's a better than 1% chance by the time I land in Des Moines later this afternoon, Joe Biden won't be president. It's at least 1%. So I don't know how long this is going to last. Take full advantage of it right now. There's a window where he can be President Trump and act as a president. He needs to raise his favorables. They're still way too low. And the polls, as I've analyzed for you before, was largely, if not exclusively, because of Biden's weakness. He needs to improve his individual one-on-one relationship with the American people. And the window is there. He was good last night. He performed well. He was an adult. He handled the questions. He avoided getting into, a douche pit with the moderators. He was phenomenal. Ride that momentum right now, step into the void, act as president. If you don't pad your lead right now when the moment is there, I fear we're going to regret it. That this morning, as we're all sitting around, slapping each other's backs, all right, and acting like our feces doesn't stink, convinced we won this thing, all right, that we're going to look back on it now in 19 weeks and say this was actually the moment we lost. We didn't take advantage of it, and they got to move him out and put somebody else in. Because I promise you this, whoever's next, even if it's Kamala, you're going to see the mother of all honeymoons. If it's Kamala, whoever it is, before the next debate in September, they're going to be at every pop culture function. They're going to be on Jimmy Kimmel Live. They're going to be on ESPN. They're going to be everywhere, to be branded as the next big hope. Everywhere. It just won't be a straight white male. So we need Trump to build a big enough lead right now to withstand the rally that I promise you is absolutely coming later. Build up enough lead now. So they got a 20-point lead in a basketball game. You get outscored by 10, 16 points, but you still pulled it out in the end. Because all that matters it doesn't matter about covering the spread. None of that matters. You just need to get to 270. Just win, baby, as Al Davis once said. That's it. But you need to build that lead right now. Take advantage of the moment now. The moment you helped create, by the way, they put all the rules against you. They did everything you could. You had to take the deal. It was probably going to be your only shot, and you went in there and freaking crushed it. Great. Now ride that momentum right now. Become president of the United States in every way, shape, or form other than the making of policy. Step into that leadership void and get people comfortable with President Trump again. Remind them that before the virus arrived, as Aaron just pointed out, America was a pretty good place to live in from 2017 to 2019, especially compared to what it is now. And I fear if we do not take advantage of that moment, if we come out of halftime leading by 8 when we ought to be leading by 16, I'm concerned about that. Because the comeback's coming. That narrative is coming. The honeymoon is coming. It's just a matter of whom they're going to be celebrating it with and trying to get us to celebrate with them. It's coming. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to empty the tank there. And there's a few more things I've got thoughts about, but let's do this. Let's take a break. And when we come back, Todd, Aaron, the three of us will compare notes. All right? We'll do that here in just a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. We'll get to Todd and Aaron here in a second here on Blaze TV radio and podcast. And I mean, the uncertainty right now, when you stop and think about the fact that last week they were telling us, you're not seeing what you're seeing, these are cheap fakes. And this week it's like everybody now wants to admit the president is senile because they know it'll cost them an election. Now, and this is another reason why it was good for Chip to invoke the 25th Amendment. House Republicans need to put House Democrats on the record with this vote and say, you know, how long have you guys known about this? Why are we lying to the American people all this time? Who's really running the country right now? And who's been running it for the last few years? Because it sure as hell isn't Kamala Harris. So who's really running the show? This ain't Dick Cheney, George W. Bush. I mean, the amount of uncertainty right now. I mean, I am at, you know, almost the evening of 9/11 level of angst for my country at the moment. And I'm probably not alone. And you're seeing that reflected in the uncertain state of the economy. And that's, again, why you want to talk to our friends over at Birch Gold. I mean, you guys, we're spending more on interest on the debt right now than everything other than Social Security. Did you know that? We're spending more on interest on the debt than Medicare, on our military, certainly on you and me. That's why you want to look at maybe protecting your investments with an IRA in gold. Birch Gold can help you make that switch and have it cost you nothing out of pocket, like they've helped thousands of other Americans as well. If you want to learn more about how to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, which has stood the test of time up against unprecedented times like this, all right, text Steve to 989-898. Claim your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Text Steve to 989-898. Again, text Steve to 989-898. Find out why they've got so many happy customers and countless 5-star reviews. Text Steve to 989-898. All right, gentlemen, you guys are going to have your own individual thoughts coming up here in the next hour along with the audience. But I wanted to give you guys a chance for iron to sharpen iron where I am concerned, and either feedback or pushback on what you just heard me lay out. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. I agree with the lion's share of it. I push back on two fronts, and it's a degree of certitude thing. Not that I don't think they are possible outcomes, but I have nowhere near the degree of certitude that Biden running puts the party in a position akin to 32 or 76, because remember, the people are the problem. We have no idea yet if the people, what the degree they know about, how many watched, if they even care. We don't have citizens anymore, largely. We have comfort-addicted consumers. And while you're absolutely right, Steve, about the degree of concern you have, a lot of people resent that they have to think about this stuff at all. And when you tell them who's running the country, that doesn't actually, they're like, people take care of this stuff. That's how they think about it all the time, which is how we got to this point with this presidency. They didn't want to look. They didn't want to look at COVID. They don't want to look at their kids being trans. So in no way do I believe that Biden running again is that level of destiny for their party, because we don't know how much the people actually care about what happened at all. And I mean it. They resent the fact that they have to think about it. They think, of course, this is what the federal government is for, bureaucracy. There's people who are supposed to make the decisions. They want to push this off. So we don't know that yet. And secondly, on the Kamala thing, if she became president, she would have to run. I disagree. Not that I don't think that it's possible that would happen, but I disagree that there's like inevitability to that because of this entire thing. The necromancing of Biden. We can't, this evil does not sleep, and I know Steve agrees with me on that. They will throw out whoever they have to. It has to do with what I just said about the people. They know they can get over on the people like that. They know there's no sudden line that they can't cross. I want to be wrong about that, but I have to be proven wrong.
So let me respond first to your second point. I think your pushback on your second point to me is very valid. And I would amend my position that I just articulated about the certainty that they'd be stuck with Kamala as a nominee if she has to become president, based on what you said. Because you forced me to consider that it actually goes against my own will to power. Like if I really believe they have will to power, they're not going to have any restraints on it where she is concerned. So I agree with that. I still think it is. Let me amend my statement based on your effective pushback, Todd. It is likely, I will say now, that if she becomes president, they are stuck with her as a nominee, or they will allow her to be the nominee. It is likely. I won't say it is as certain as maybe I articulated the first time. But that's also why I will disagree with your first piece of pushback. It is because they have effectively done this to the people, and now the cover has been blown in broad daylight last night, that they are reacting this way. They are reacting this way because they are making people care who don't want to have to care. They are making people come to grips and confront this in ways they don't want to have to come to grips and confront this. And that's why they are reacting the way they are. Because their fear is that they have organically done something the Republican Party is either unwilling or incapable of doing, and that's waking up large swaths of normies to the reality of the joke-filled weekend at Bernie's, but frankly, when we're laughing to mask the pain, reality of other people are running the country, because it's certainly not this guy, and that's why they're reacting the way that they are now. Is because of what you just said. It's because they understand that fear is now real, that people are suddenly going to have to care about things they don't want to have to care about when they'd rather, as you would like to say, set their feet. And so they need to move on from this to go back to anesthetizing the people with bread and circuses. So it's because of that, actually, that I'm not going to amend my belief on the first point at all. But you certainly got me to reconsider my second point.
You're right. You're right if they awaken. We're used to people not awakening. That's my point. Like, we don't know that yet.
Listen, you've got another hour. You're going to get the last word. Okay? So let me say this.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust that they know their people better than me. I'm going to trust that they know what awakes it, what reaches normies and what does not, because the people I work with and roll with don't have a damn clue. That's been demonstrated on the right. Okay. Outside of like Iowa, Georgia half the time, and Florida, we don't have a damn clue. So I'm going to trust that they know. And they're hitting the panic button right now. Dude, when you got Jen Psaki going on MSNBC last night saying, well, Biden didn't want to do this, but the campaign convinced him it was a good and smart thing to do. She's basically telling you they rolled this old man into this so they could roll him out. Okay. So the way they're reacting, I'm going to listen to them. Like, let me put it into sports parlance. If my opponent changes their game plan against what I know they're good at, there's a reason for that. I'm going to trust they know somebody's hurt I don't know. Something's happened within their team I'm not aware of. Okay. I may not be in their talks, but within their ecosystem, something's changed that has caused them to proactively react to the situation before I can even impose on them. I mean, I just got a text from Chip 10 minutes ago telling me, can you believe most of my colleagues don't even want to go through with the 25th Amendment? They're clueless. We're not the ones driving this. We're not in charge of this. We're not doing anything with it. And I'm going to trust that they know their people better than we do, because they certainly have proven to be more effective at both getting the people to slumber and awaken on their cue whenever they want the last few years. We haven't done it one singular time. Aaron, what about you?
So I think an important question to ask at this juncture is we know, and you articulated this, that the Democrats over there, their highest ideal is will to power. We are all in agreement on this, correct? They are communists. Their highest ideal, will to power. That is the air that they breathe. That is their pursuit of life. That is their meaning in life, is attaining and wielding power. I think it's important to ask at this moment, as it pertains to what they view as the way forward, what is their most precious instrument in achieving that power? And what has it been for the better part, especially of the last decade and a half? That is intersectionality, I would say. Racial politics. We have to ask ourselves here, how big of a deal? Yes, yes, they are necromancers. They did that back in the Democrat primary of 2020. Okay, they have just last week, Biden fumbling, mumbling, stumbling around. Those are cheap fakes. Okay, all of this is in the pursuit of power. The question then becomes, if Kamala Harris is kind of their backup plan and they don't want that, how precious of an instrument of power is intersectionality? Because they would risk betraying that instrument by overlooking her. But at the same time, she's a liability. How big of an I don't know this. Do you have any clue whether they would actually pass over Kamala Harris in the pursuit of a better candidate? Because I don't think it's her capabilities or lack thereof. I don't think it's the Kamala gook. I don't think they care about any of that whatsoever. The only thing they care about when it comes to Kamala is the intersectionality part. And I can't see them just overlooking that out of hand. 100%
agree with that. Whoever replaces Biden on the ballot will not be a straight white male for all the reasons you just articulated. Not to mention, could you imagine Trump shows up on stage, opens the debate with Gavin Newsom and says, "Hey, Junior, I sent my JV quarterback after you a few months ago and he kicked your ass and I beat his ass by 30 points. What are you doing here?" Election's over right there. That's why. So on top, Newsom is a damaged goods nationally, but he's also a straight white male. And so, yes, this would also risk blowing up a rift in their base to bypass a black woman for a straight white male who also got embarrassed on when he rolled himself out to do an audition last fall. He got absolutely embarrassed with it. So can you imagine the memes would just write themselves? Hey, you guys went from a candidate who pooped his pants to one who had, a poop map in his state. You guys are full of poop. I mean, they're not going to do that either. It's going to be the intersectionality. It's going to be a non-white male. Gretchen Whitmer might be, a redux to what happened to Hillary and Elizabeth Warren. Okay, Hakeem Jeffries. Time Magazine ran a column over the weekend talking about I wish the Democrats had a more moderate voice to replace Joe Biden with. And the two names that were in there were Gretchen Whitmer and Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, so as long as it's not a white male, a straight white male, they can put in there. They could bypass Kamala with anybody who's not a straight white male. Yeah, but it can't be a straight white male.
I don't think anybody. It's simple, but it's not easy analyzing the way forward. It's simple in that we understand their pursuit of power, will to power, is the thing that drives them. That's absolutely true. How that manifests itself is we're looking at the mouth of madness, the mouth of hell, and the language of hell is chaos. So you're going to be looking at a lot of chaos in the coming days, I think.
Yeah, you're basically looking at a Games of Thrones episode is coming to life. Not House of Cards, Games of Thrones. All right, let me talk about real estate agents I trust, and then I want us to close out with getting your thoughts on what I said I think Trump and the Republicans should do. All right? In these unprecedented times, Todd.
Bang, 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 bang.
Goodness gracious. All right. Since we don't know who will be president in 10 minutes, all right, it's like when Reagan said why he didn't have a summit with Soviet leaders in his first term. He said, well, they all keep dying on me. Okay. Folks, make sure you go in with a real estate agent you can trust. All right. You'll find them where the website says it all at realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. They'll help you get to where you want to go, whether that's across the country or just across town, with the best practices, a proven, fully vetted, verified track record of success. And a lot of times they come from right here in the audience, so they share the same value system as you. Go to the website now before you dare get into this real estate market. realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, we've got 3 minutes left. Let's talk about the Trump side of this and what I suggested there, what I would do if I were advising them. Your thoughts?
Absolutely nailed that part. Go out there and be president. And like last night, where for the most part, he was still Trumpian. And if you're Trumpian, you're definitely coloring outside the lines. That's unavoidable. But you're not just like spastic vomiting rainbows all over the place. And so go out there and be specific. Yeah, visit all the places, but start talking to the extent that you can. Like, I don't know who wants to attach. That's the problem. Who wants to attach their wagon to him yet? We don't know. That's a huge problem for Trump. But if you can get people to say, if he can put names out there that are willing to step into the breach on various policy issues, possible cabinet people, continue to show people rallying around Trump, and not just, it's nice to see the crowds, but we know how that works now and manipulated. Actual substance, actual experts on healthcare, the people, we know the names that we'd like to see around them. They need to start getting around them and show how they would do things differently, that it's not going to be the clown show that it was last time. So yes, starting now, go out there and be president of the United States. Steve, you nailed it.
Yep, you've got a leg up right now. There's no doubt about that. And we don't know, as we're taping this morning, we'll have more when Todd and I are live here in a few minutes about what the Supreme Court will do on his immunity. This could be a very, very pivotal few days for you, but only if you choose to make it so. Okay? No stupid memes being tweeted out from your official account, just presidential, an actual adult in the room type of message, I think, is what's going to be crucial.
And I think he's capable of it based on what I saw last night, guys. He really didn't take the bait on anything. I thought your description, Todd, was perfect. He was Trumpian, but he was presidential.
Yeah,
yeah.
I was starting to at the end when he's starting to do my golf game's better than your golf game. I mean, dear God, stop.
He self-edited himself. You see that Joe, we're acting like children. Yeah. Let's let this.
Yeah.
Instead of demanding he gets the last word and going, he self-edited again. You know, so I thought, again, I loved your description there. He was Trumpian. His persona is going to color. And I would never tell him if I were, his right-hand man. I would never try to take the coloring outside the lines angle away. That's your brand. That's what sets you apart. OK, but there's coloring outside the lines, man. And then there's coloring on yourself, bro. OK.
Well, then
don't
in that
and arms and face.
Well, then to whatever instincts he went in with last night, knowing, OK, I got to do this. The same with start
real quick. That's almost out of time.
Go to grown-ups and say, listen, man, I need your help. Get all the people that he needs in his cabinet.
On a roll. You get the last word. You got another hour, Todd, to finish that point, guys. I gotta get on a plane. All right, we'll see you on Monday.
What a 24 hours it has been. Just taking a step back and looking at all that's transpired since we got off the air yesterday. The entire nation got to witness their faith in the White House necromancers absolutely shot on live TV last night. Whoever was cooking the meth over at Camp David for the last week, Heisenberg, Walter White, they were not. And then this morning at the Supreme Court, something conservative legal beagles have been clamoring for, pining for my entire life, literally my entire life. I've seen a few takes this morning saying this is up there with the Dobbs decision, Roe v. Wade being overturned in terms of things we didn't expect to see in our lifetimes. Chevron deference, basically the deep state can decide how much power it has. That's shot. Hundreds of J6ers perhaps this morning breathing a sigh of relief. But the real question everyone is asking in terms of Joe Biden, what happens next? The UK Daily Mail just a few weeks ago came out with a piece and quoted a top Democrat operative saying he believes there are 4 individuals with the power to determine the fate of Joe Biden. I think at this point, it's pretty obvious there's just one person with that power. And what do you think? What do you think happens now? What do you think the future, immediate and long term, has to bear? We're going to be talking about all that next on a special Friday edition, hour 2 of the Steve Deace Show.
Well, folks, there's at least one university left in the country that is not totally given over to the spirit of the age, and it's our friends at Hillsdale. They are less concerned with indoctrination than they are critical thinking. They're still following their founding mission, going all the way back to 1844, to preserve the blessings of civil and religious liberty with the kind of education that will do exactly that. And they remain on that mission to this very day. You can learn more at DEACE4FOR, DEACE4Hillsdale.com. That's DEACE4Hillsdale.com. There you're going to find a short video just over a minute long showing how Hillsdale's work, not only on its Michigan and Washington, D.C. campuses, but across the nation, is effective in defending American liberty. So take some time to watch it today. DEACE4Hillsdale.com. That's DEACE4Hillsdale.com.
I'm Aaron McIntyre. He is Todd Erzin. We are steering the ship, hour 2 of this kind of special Friday edition of the Steve Deace Show. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago when we knew that Steve was going to be down in Dallas for post-debate and pre-debate coverage, discussing what to do about the Friday edition of the show. And we just decided, we've got to be here live, at least for 1 hour, with all of the Supreme Court. This was supposed to be the last day of the Supreme Court's term. I believe I saw on Twitter this morning, or on X this morning, Todd, they've actually added another day to their term, Monday. So we're still waiting on the big decision about Trump and presidential immunity. I anticipate that's probably going to be dropping on Monday, but we did have 2 pretty major decisions this morning that we'll talk about briefly in passing coming up in just a few moments. Todd, any dangling participles from specifically last night at the debates? Getting on social media today, it's really interesting. I've seen a divide in the commentary about last night. When it comes to actual brokers, power brokers in the Democrat Party, I'm seeing a lot of panic. I don't know if you've seen this. I've seen a lot of panic, a lot of legitimate panic. Here's Hakeem Jeffries. You heard Steve quote him or talk about him, invoke his name just a few minutes ago at the bottom of last hour. Hakeem Jeffries told the AP this morning, quote, President Biden is scheduled to speak today around noon. That was like an hour ago. I still haven't seen him speaking yet. Maybe he is in North Carolina. I'm looking forward to hearing from President Biden, and until he articulates a way forward in terms of his vision for America at this moment, I'm going to reserve comment about anything relative to where we are at this moment, other than to say I stand behind the ticket. That's Hakeem Jeffries. Nancy Pelosi talked to MSNBC. She says she hasn't spoken to the president, says the party doesn't need a new nominee, said that speech today in North Carolina will admit that he gave, from a performance standpoint, not a great showing last night. And then in terms of the commentary, in terms of the sycophants, typical sycophantic behavior. I saw Mark Cuban this morning talking about, well, if the choice is between feeble and ethical versus jovial or whatever descriptor he gave for Trump and unethical, I'm going feeble and ethical. There's a divide on the left right now in terms of the sycophantic class who really doesn't have much brokering, I should say, and the actual power brokers in the Democrat Party. I'm seeing that divide crystal clear this morning. Any final comments, because we talked ad nauseum kind of about last night and Steve's overall feelings and outlook on where we're going from here. Any final thoughts on last night specifically, Todd?
Well, while it's clear that we all thought last night was a trap for Donald Trump, and it was, and he ended up coming out clean on the other side, but that's largely because it was also a trap for Joe Biden, as we clearly understand now. And Joe couldn't, it was simply destiny, apparently, based on his apothecary's inability to keep up, that he was going to fall into that. That being said, many of the disparate reactions that you're talking about, that Joe's just, it's not a fait accompli. It's not done. And here's why. Even though Joe was necromanced out of nowhere, and that can be done again with a different candidate, revived in 2020, handed this thing, sold his soul, is wicked along with his wife. No one should shed any tears about being exited stage left. But here's the thing. Once you're in and once you do that, it's not simply reversing the process and kicking him back out. The replacement part is easier. You're going to be able to find a lot of Democrats willing to sell their soul. The frustrating part is they won't be dementia ridden for the deep state. But you'll be able to find them. Here's the thing, though. Getting rid of Biden and his wife.
We're going to be talking about that. Don't step on that quite yet.
Don't step on it?
Yeah, don't step on that quite yet. We're going to be getting to that. I just wanted final thoughts last night specifically before we move on, because we do need to talk about a couple of things that broke this morning as we were actually taping that first hour of the show. And we will get back to the way forward in just a moment, and that's going to be what we'll spend the majority of our time on. Today, the Chevron deference basically is the deep state equivalent of the quip. The brain has decided that the brain is the most important organ in the body. That's my understanding of Chevron deference. It basically says that administrative agencies, alphabet agencies, correct me if I'm getting anything wrong here, Todd, alphabet agencies get to decide how much power they actually have. Conservative legal beagles my entire life. This stemmed from like a 1980s case, I want to say, where the Supreme Court said, yeah, alphabet agencies basically get to make their own rules and laws and follow them. It's a lot more complicated than that. I'm trying to not dumb it down, but make it as briefly understandable as possible. Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision today basically said, nope, no more Chevron deference, no more of that. We're getting rid of that. 6-3 on ideological lines. Something I saw a couple of people this morning, including Michael Knowles, who's a very smart man over at the Daily Wire. In his mind, this is up there with Dobbs in terms of something he never thought he would see actually nixed within his lifetime. Dobbs being, of course, Roe v. Wade. So that is some good news, we think, in terms of Chevron deference being overturned. I have a very specific question about the other major ruling this morning as well, which is SCOTUS decided on obstruction charges relating to January 6th. They decided in a 6-3 opinion that the Justice Department overstepped by charging hundreds of people who rioted or were involved in whatever happened at January 6th at the Capitol. They decided the Justice Department overstepped with obstruction charges for hundreds, I think 350 people. It also pertains to Trump as well. He was charged with obstruction in kind of an unrelated matter, too. 6-3 decision. This is good news for hundreds of J6 defendants. What's interesting about this decision, though, you may have seen this already, Amy Coney Barrett sided with the liberals, while Ketanji Brown Jackson sided with the conservatives in this ruling. You can't make this stuff up. At this point, I talked about this briefly earlier this week, Todd, when it comes to Amy Coney Barrett. Her devolution has kind of been the end of whatever youthful glimmer I had in my mind, optimism about the political process, the machinery of politics. We had just come through COVID that year at the end of 2020, I believe, when she was confirmed to the Supreme Court. And I saw the picture that she had, just amazing family, a big family that had grown through adoption, a multiracial family. And I thought just that alone is indicative of some fruit on a tree that was rooted in something transcendent, good, true, and beautiful. And she'd clerked for Antonin Scalia. I was so optimistic, and watching her devolution as a Supreme Court justice has crushed whatever optimism I've had, at least for the machinery of politics. We're getting into the territory now with Amy Coney Barrett, siding with the liberals in the Supreme Court in this ruling this morning against the J6ers. I have a question. Does somebody have something on Amy Coney Barrett? And I'm not saying that tongue-in-cheek. I just can't make sense of somebody who comes from the background that she does, clerked for Antonin Scalia like she did. I don't understand what is going on with her. Todd, do you think this is an actual sober question to ask?
Well, I haven't read the particulars of the dissent yet, so other than knowing that her name is on it. But yeah, I ask that question all the time about a lot of different people. But the person that may just have something on her is a demon, just like so many others. I mean, that's was what you start acting like this when you let forces in far beyond your understanding, and you can do that for a lot of different ways. This and Michael Knowles commenting on the other decision. These are good decisions, but when they're also kind of like inexplicable. We just got done. I mean, how many days ago was Steve? Just 2 days ago, right? On the speech issue. there's still dots that don't connect.
Yeah, I know.
And that level of chaos, it feels like a life raft today. The debate kind of does a little bit, but there's folks, I mean, there's too many people, as I've said, that aren't invested in being citizens. And in a nation of we the people, yes, Chevron doctrine, exit stage left. Who fills that power vacuum? If it's not we the people, guess what? It's probably something bad again. So I have lots of questions, and you're right to ask that one about Amy Coney Barrett and a lot of other people as well.
So those are kind of the breaking news items from this morning. The big decisions at the Supreme Court. We're still waiting on presidential immunity, but I believe I saw on Twitter this morning, or on X this morning, keep calling it Twitter, just like Amy Coney Barrett did in the nixing of the First Amendment decision that she made the other day. I saw they added another day to their term, so we're going to be on pins and needles, I guess, through the weekend. It kind of does help because it lets the debate last night permeate over the weekend without having another immunity or another major ruling involving Donald Trump's legal woes or persecution filling that airtime. So with that being said, with the breaking news being covered, the big question everyone is asking, rightfully so this morning, I asked this last night on X, soliciting just what you think out in listener land, you here with us, what you think will happen next when it comes to Joe Biden. And there is a kaleidoscope of answers out there, ranging from nothing's going to happen, ranging to the weirdest possible outcomes. And we'll get to those a little bit later. But I don't know if you saw this, Todd. A couple of weeks ago, the Daily Mail, the UK Daily Mail, came out with a piece called something akin to the Democrats' secret plan to replace Joe Biden. And it detailed how power brokers within the Democratic establishment are starting to get a little bit leery, I should say, of Joe Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. As we're speaking, he finally is on stage in North Carolina for his event. And he doesn't look much different so far from the videos and clips that I've seen. Doesn't look much different than he did last night. Well, in this story at the Daily Mail, it quoted an anonymous top Democrat operative. And this Democrat operative had this to say about really who has the power to ensure that Joe Biden steps down. Quote, "Now DailyMail.com has learned that if Joe stumbles in that first face-off with Trump, or if his polling numbers keep falling, it'll take a united front of the liberal grandees to make Joe throw in the towel. Quote, the only people who could force him out would be Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer." It's a Democratic strategist, a top Democratic operative. 4 people: Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. I don't buy that. Because at this point, it's become increasingly obvious in my mind. And it's been months and months ago when I first pointed this out, when we started having these conversations about what if they need to replace Joe Biden. I pointed this out many moons ago, that there's only one person, I think, who will decide that fate. And that is Dr. Jill Biden. I think she is the most powerful woman, maybe the most powerful being right now in this country. Todd, you worked in a newsroom before.
Yeah.
So you know a thing or two about being around people who believe deep down in their souls that they are much more important, much more necessary than they actually are.
Yes.
They have an outsized view of what their worth is in terms of economic ability, things of that nature.
Journalism is magical and not at all broken, yes.
You have a good idea of what it's like to work with people who, if they had a doctorate, they would insist on being called doctor, even if they weren't a medical doctor.
Correct.
This is the type of person that we're talking about. And just look at this photo from last night, post-debate. If you're listening on Blaze Radio or the podcast later on, this is a photo of the post-debate speech event that the Biden campaign held. And standing there are Joe and Jill Biden. Joe has that same just dazed, mouth agape, unblinking look on his face, not moving, while let's call it very animated, Dr. Jill Biden screams into the microphone. It seems to me, Todd, somebody who insists on being called Dr. Jill Biden, even though they're not a real medical doctor, probably has, let's just say, an outsized view of themselves. Probably. I think this is the type of person we're dealing with when we're talking about Jill Biden. It seems to me that the most powerful being right now is her. She is going to be the one who decides the fate of her husband, Joe Biden. Because at the end of the day, yes, we just talked about the will to power. She understands this as well. The end of the day, it's going to be the Bidens who decide whether or not the Bidens step aside. And when we're talking about the Bidens, as was made obviously and painfully and just terrifyingly clear last night, we're talking about the Biden, and that is Dr. Jill Biden. She will decide. She will be the one to decide whether or not Joe goes. That is, notwithstanding a medical event that leaves her no choice whatsoever. But ultimately, if we're talking about going through this process and willfully removing Joe Biden, they have to consent to it one way or another. And as long as she can convince the necromancers to get him off of his keister every single day for the next several weeks before the election, few months, I don't think Joe Biden is going anywhere. I don't think there's a dollar number. I don't think there's a dollar number that could buy off Jill Biden. She has an outsized view of herself, an outsized view of what she brings to the table. And I think she is actually going to be the one to decide the fate here. Todd, what do you think about my postulation? It's something you brought up in passing, and I know you are chomping at the bit to get in on this conversation.
That's what I was setting up earlier, but it's more than just about that level of ego. That level of ego is necessary to jump into this game of chicken, but it's about knowing where the bodies are buried. This is the thing. Once you're dragged into this game, and yes, I'll sell my soul, I'll do whatever, but then I mean, you're the commander-in-chief. They know all kinds of things about all kinds of people. How about what I talk about, the reverse Wakanda in Ukraine? How deep that goes with the Bidens, but on behalf of this much larger cabal of God only knows who. This ain't just the Joe and Hunter show. They know a lot about a lot of stuff. And that's the thing. Those 6 people or 5 people over you mentioned, the president, the ex-presidents, that's the game of chicken I'm talking about. If they would have to come in there, it wouldn't just be like, Joe, I think it's your time. Oh, no, it would be like... Does
that woman look like she's about to consent to having her husband stripped from the most powerful title on the face of the planet?
She would say, here are the things I'm going to leak about you, or just flat out say about you if you try to throw us out. And they in turn would say, oh, yeah? This is what we're going to spill all this further garbage about you. It would be nasty. And that's why you get Hakeem Jeffries, like, that guy's not afraid of putting out a scathing hot take about something, and he's like, really, are my I's dotted, are my T's crossed? Let's wait and see, because nobody has any clue. Everybody knows that these Bidens, the same soullessness and shamelessness that had them willing to take this seat on when they were going nowhere. Now, but once you're in, you know stuff. You just, I don't care how dementia. Now, as long as this is my point about the people. If the people were actual citizens, it'd be an entirely different ballgame. The left wouldn't want. The left would like, we have to be better than this. They don't want to be better than this. Yeah. They aren't. The right is dysfunctional, worried about mean tweets, things like that. We don't have citizens in this country. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And I'm just simply not convinced that the American people are now suddenly aware in a new way of, wow, yeah, this Joe Biden thing, we're teetering on the edge. People are laughing at us. Most people don't care.
So how do you square that, though, with what you agreed with earlier this hour, that it does seem like the power brokers are indeed scared? Why? How do you explain that? If the American people aren't scared, and that quote that you had last hour was cash money, I kept thinking about it over and over again. It's been bouncing around in my head. Basically, the people resent having to think.
Yes.
That explains a lot. So how do you square what's obvious panic from the power brokers with your, I think, probably at least 80% correct assertion that the American people don't care and there's no new revelation? I'm not sure that's totally true. I mean, Steve just texted us right before the start of this hour, sports handicapper who he's followed his entire life, on his deathbed right now, has never said or mentioned or talked about anything remotely political, tweeted out last night for the first time, Joe's got to go. He's got to go. I mean, I think we had Kirk Herbstreit, another sports figure, last night. He doesn't really tweet much politically either. He was just like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. I think I do agree this penetrated. I don't know how much. You know, I took the under when Steve said 60 million people would tune into the debate. I took the under. I'm not so sure about that. Anecdotally, I saw a lot of people on my timeline who I don't follow for politics. They were tweeting about watching the debate. So I'm not sure. I do think this has penetrated a little bit. I do agree with your overall mood of the people that they resent having to think about anything serious. But how do you square the obvious panic with the American people's mood?
I think both things can be true at the same time. I mean, everybody is, quote unquote, human to some extent. You go from a population that can totally give up trying on COVID, in many ways, doesn't give a damn about whether their kids are transing or not. They're just, I want to be comfortable. But suddenly when a debate's on, even if you were right, Aaron, that's 60 million people. That's still what? 55 more million people than are normally paying attention on any given day. And you feel like you can't quite control the narrative within this news cycle. But here's what even they forget, and we all do it's to some extent, that within this news cycle, hey guys, it's not even July 1st yet. The election's in November. That's a political eternity. Like you said, we don't know what's going to happen. Can you imagine if this is, whatever this ruling is on Monday, is the worst case scenario for Trump? And then instantly we're toggling in a totally different direction about what this means, whether they try to actually put him in jail or not. There's so many things that could happen between now and the election day. So I think they're being wise as serpents. They're seeing that they need to keep their options open. And they're not wrong about that. They absolutely do need to have a workable plan in place for exiting Joe stage left. But I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Aaron. You are, and I usually all three of us overlap on this to some extent, but I think you and I are the closest. Isn't the value bet that once we get into the July 4th weekend, people, and the top 5 things on people's mind, is it going to be, for your average American, is it going to be Joe Biden's leadership of this country? I just don't believe that. If
politics is brought up, I believe his performance will be talked about. If it's brought up at Independence Day gatherings, his performance is brought up. I just don't know how much politics is brought up across the board. There is one aspect here that I always manage to forget about in terms of timing. We say the Democrats have a couple of months here before their convention. That's true. And Steve's position was this entire time that this very, very early debate was done on purpose to give the Democrats time to find a replacement. However, now this might just be forget about it, will to power, don't even worry about something like this. This is a jot and tittle detail. But is it worth considering? And this is something I forget about quite often. When are ballots actually printed? There are a few states coming up here, really, I think in about a month, that will begin early voting. Once you print ballots, you can't unprint them. What I'm saying here is there may be less time than we actually considered to begin this, to actually successfully get Joe Biden off of the ballots. Is that something we need to worry about or consider into our calculations here? Or is this just a will to power? Don't worry about it. They'll figure something out.
Yeah, and that's funny in particular because it's, the Democrats set up this absurd scenario where you can start voting this early. So this is boomeranging back on them. And so, yeah, that one I'm laughing about. That's now you're stuck with that, Democrats. So I think you're right to realize it as a reality. But I mean, as we don't have Republicans haven't really addressed this one way or the other. So it's like it's a moot point to us.
So at Camp David last week during the debate prep, what do you think that actually entailed now that we're past the debate? I don't know. But at the debate prep, rumor has it there were a lot of these running, particularly in the bedroom of the most powerful human being in this country. A lot of these. Here's Steve with a word from our next sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I keep telling you how popular the Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier is with this audience because it's a purifier. It's not a freshener. It eliminates the components that are causing the bad smells in your home, and it does it with its Oxy technology that won't require any filter replacements out of pocket or out of time forever. Just turn it on and forget about it. It'll quietly work in the background, cleaning, and then as a result of the purifying, freshening the air in your home. All right, so place a Thunderstorm in your bedroom, family room, kitchen, or basement. They even make great gifts. Get the 3-pack for whole home protection and get $200 off when you visit EdenPureDeals.com and use discount code Steve3. That's EdenPureDeals.com, discount code Steve3.
Yeah, if the White House Apothecary doesn't have a truckload of those ready to go for any moment, particularly around Joe Biden, they need them. So coming up next, we want to know what you think. What do you think the future holds, both near-term and long-term, as it pertains to Joe Biden and what is done about him, to him, for him, around him? I asked you that question last night on X. I have selected several actual submissions I found interesting, compelling, unique. Todd and I will react to your reactions coming up next on a special Hour 2 of the Friday Steve Deace Show.
Donald Trump says he thinks overturning Roe v. Wade was a beautiful thing.
That is Joe Biden just moments ago in North Carolina, doing a wonderful job assuaging Democrats' despair this morning. Yes, Todd? Doing a great job? Oh, man. That quote from Hakeem Jeffries that I read towards the top of this hour, basically saying, I'm not going to say anything on the record right now. I want to hear from Joe Biden. Well, you're hearing from Joe Biden so far this morning. We are still awaiting the ratings. How many people watched last night's debate? What did Steve say? It's around 80 to 100 million people, typical debates over the last 20 years or so. It'll be interesting to see, because as I said, there were a lot of people last night that I follow on X, not for politics or anything, that were actually tuning in and paying attention to this. Again, that's just anecdotal. I understand that, but it will be very telling, I think. It could inform, depending on how many people actually watch that debate, it actually could inform what, if anything, the Democrats will do going forward, which is what I asked you last night on X. What is the way forward? What will happen next when it comes to Joe Biden? We'll get to your reactions to that debate and what's going to happen next in just a few moments before Steve tells you about another one of our fine partners.
Check out the new book, Full Time: Work and the Meaning of Life by David Bahnsen. We were created for work, And our work provides unique meaning and purpose in our lives. It's one of the great ways and primary ways that we glorify our Creator. And yet today there's almost a stigma to it. We've gone so far the other way. When I was growing up in the 80s, we were off track one way. Greed is good. No, it's not. All right. Materialism for materialism's sake, success for success's sake, prosperity for prosperity's sake is not good. That's greed. OK. But now we've gone the other way. Work is bad. OK, there needs to be balance there. And it's the balance provided by a biblical worldview, the Word of God, His revelation. You're going to find that in this new book by David Bahnsen, Full-Time Work and the Meaning of Life. If it's to glorify our Creator, success is good. If it's the result of glorifying our Creator, prosperity is good. If it's the result of glorifying our Creator, significance is good, because we're using the gifts He gave us and working their full potential to accomplish our number one purpose in life, the glorifying of God. All right, so check this book out right now. It's available for purchase at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can visit fulltimebook.com for more information. That's fulltimebook.com. Once again, it's called fulltimebook.com.
Well, speak of the devil, I was just talking about wanting to know what the ratings were last night. This is from The Hollywood Reporter, the 90-minute debate produced by CNN, aired on a lot of other networks as well, averaged 47.9 million viewers. However, there were a lot of other networks, including BlazeTV, if you watched our coverage last night of the debate. Steve actually just posted this, so he must have information that we're not privy to. So, again, that was just on CNN, 47.9 million people. I guess when you factor in all the other networks' streaming options, Steve says it looks like 80 million watched a president gone senile on TV and digital last night. Todd, is that still fewer people than you were expecting?
Well, I narrowly took the over, which was 70. So, I mean, and this should have a lot of people. It's now if they were really paying attention, and there's real doubt out there, no matter who you are, like the right, left, and center, this is untenable. We've got to do something about this. Well, then, Donald Trump and moving forward, let's not snatch defeat from the jaws of victory by giving people reason to think we don't have our act together. We don't know how to coalesce. We're not a real alternative option. I mean, if people are really, really awake now, then I mean, honestly, if you really have a surprise candidate for VP, make that Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
Honestly, forget. There's nobody else you're good. There's so many of these other names that are going to have people questioning your sanity, and this civil war going on within the Republican Party. One side will say, "Man, this just makes me want to vote even less." Coalesce the Republicans so that when the normies look at what's going on both sides, they aren't seeing chaos on both sides. They're clearly seeing a side where they're getting their act together. Donald Trump is actually showing a little maturity. If they do that and fill this vacuum, I think real things are possible. But again, it isn't even July 1st yet, and there are plenty of opportunities to do what Donald Trump and Republicans always do, and is somehow not take the easy win.
So with that in mind, let's get to your reactions. What do you think will happen next as it pertains to Biden and the Democrats? I asked you last night on X, and I chose a few of your responses, and we'll just go through these in no particular order. Todd and I will react. Rhonda Swanson is up first. Conspiracy hypothesis. The Democrats all knew Biden was in this bad shape, and they all wanted to replace him, but Jill wouldn't let him step down. They pushed for the early debate and messed up his cocktail so he'd crash and burn and have to step aside. I've seen some variation of this a few times, concentrating on one certain part there. Do you think that this debate was actually the trap for Biden and not Trump?
It was a trap for both of them. We didn't know to the degree it was going to be for Biden. Well, I'll speak for myself. I didn't think, but not because everybody, per the language of that, Yeah, Democrats absolutely all knew, but they haven't been wanting him out. There's just this has been Jordan Schachtel said as much. It has been fantastic for Democrats to have the most powerful office in the entire world being filled out by a dementia patient, because the whole deep state that we just got done talking about, the Chevron doctrine, they get to do whatever they want to. So now here at the end, trust me, if they could figure out a way, I don't know what the value bet is, Aaron, what the odds they would need this is so good. We're going to take a chance on it falling apart to go with it because they love this. It's not a bad thing. It's a very, very good thing. And I don't believe that they didn't try to give him the strongest cocktail or anything like that. They would take Biden back in a second.
Joe Biden still speaking in North Carolina, quote, "I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to." Maybe some self-awareness there. Moving on to cheap.
Well, people are, I don't know, Aaron, my instinct, it's not a bad tack with the modern American people to just try to make people feel sorry for you. Mm-hmm. Honestly. And then they'll go, well, but he's such a nice guy and Trump's a jerk. So yeah, there's people there that there's the administrative state. They'll help him. They'll think like that. I hate that that's true, but they will.
Next, we go to Cheap Deepfake, who says, "I think they're going to keep him and rely on the short memory of the American voter combined with time healing all wounds. However, if they do that, they have to cancel the second debate. They can't try this again. That was an unmitigated disaster for Biden." This is a very good take.
Yes, but that's mostly true. And there's, he may be gone tomorrow. He may be gone. I'm not saying that's a sliver in an option or anything like that. But yeah, this is a very good take.
Codified Likeness Utility says, here's a question people need to think about. What happens if they don't drop him at the convention and he is the nominee? Because it's becoming, we've gone from, in like 24 hours, we've gone from, that's really far-fetched, they'll never replace him, to, wait a minute, is he actually going to stay on the ticket? That's how far things have gone in just like 24 hours.
Here's my point about the short memory. Do you remember an election that Joe Biden was actually in called the presidential race of 2020, where during COVID, they basically kept him in the basement and he didn't appear? This happened before and it worked. It's about, if the American people do not show an appetite for waking up, that's what we need to pay attention to. That's the variable here. And that's what the Democrats are worried for. And that's why Hakeem Jeffries is waiting to see what to do. But if the American people, and oh, by the way, what consumes many Americans' attention starting in August and right through the season? Oh, yeah.
Football.
The biggest idol in the country, football. Guys, come on. Be wise as serpents, okay? Okay? Just think. He got to be president when he had absolutely no shot of being president because some power brokers decided it. And now those same power brokers may decide that they need to do it in another direction, but it's a different thing now that he's on the inside and he's got Jill Biden, who is the woman that Aaron said she is. The dynamics in that front aren't completely the same. But he's hid in the basement before and won. And the American people bought it. We'll have to see.
It could be, though, that the very apathy, the very lack of appetite for waking up that you have correctly deduced about the American electorate, that there is a universe here in which that's actually helpful to Donald Trump. Nobody, and I mean nobody, and if there is somebody, I'd like to meet them, falls into this demographic. I watched Joe Biden's dementia shoved down my throat last night. I was going to vote for him. Therefore, I can't do that anymore. I'm voting for Donald Trump. That doesn't exist in my mind. Okay? I don't think that exists.
Likely no.
I think it does exist that I can't vote for that. I'm just not going to vote. I think that exists. That's an offshoot of what you were just talking about, Todd, which is apathy, which is a lack of willingness to wake up. But I think that actually helps Donald Trump. I think the apathetic part actually does help him.
It can, and we don't know how that part is balanced out by the capabilities.
I'm not saying that's a good thing either, but
but by the margin of cheating, sure.
Tiny Johnny says the Democrats are stuck. They have no likable candidate to turn to in their party. They are seeing the fruits of going too left. They may have an actual moderate to turn to, but no leftist wants that candidate anyways. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. They don't care about going too far left. They don't even see things in terms of left or right. There's just power and those too afraid to wield it, basically. They're basically Voldemort. So there's no check and balance. Oh, no. Goodness gracious, we've gone too far left. We've trans too many kids. We've killed too many late-term babies, preborn babies. No. They're not worried about going too far left. The only worry they have right now, if there is a worry at all, it may be unfounded, as Todd has drilled home in this hour. It's that they're afraid of losing power. That's the only thing that they're afraid of.
Yeah. I get out and I get the chance to be around a fairly wide swath of the American people. So I think maybe that's why my perceptions are different. Most people are so drugged with comfort and false compassion and things like that. They don't see the left as going too far. They really don't. They may not be. They're on the same ski hill. They're on a slope that's not going down quite as hard, quite as fast. But they see the future. A lot of them within the church. Look at the church. Many people within the church still have views of compassion, about acceptance, things like that dovetail with the goals of the left. So, again, want to be wrong about this, but I'm going to need to be shown proof.
All right, here's a finer point on the television ratings from last night. This is from former CNN employee Brian Stelter quoting a statement from CNN. A combined 47.9 million total viewers watched the CNN presidential debate on television last night. That's across all the networks in which it appeared. So I was actually right to take the under. 47.9 million people. That's all that watched that last night.
See, okay.
Basically just validated every message that you've given over the past hour.
What you repeat it because it resonated. I'm not going to, what line did I just say about the American people and their level of involvement in politics?
They resent having to think.
Yes. They don't like it. They think they're above it. But they're the ones that cause all this by not realizing I'm in America, so I have to be a citizen by definition. No, icky. Then the things they say about politicians, they're all liars, and so they get what they deserve. I mean, honestly, this just from a rubbernecking, there's a crash on the road. You'd think this American people addicted to the titillation of the internet would have tuned into this thing. Nope. They got a guy on the other line for a set of white walls. We are addicted to comfort that has nothing to do with governing ourselves, people. I don't know how many ways I need to tell you this. I don't do it because I don't think it's true. Wow. I mean, I'm the guy, and Aaron, you were right on that. I narrowly took the over. Just because of the rubbernecking. You couldn't even watch because you wanted to see the plane crash. Look at all the other crap you watch on the internet. Oh, look at them, ow my balls. But this, nope, it's still politics. So I'm tapping out. So we're going to get what we deserve.
Let's read a few more reactions before we close out here, very quickly. Bo says Kamala's POTUS by July 15th selects Whitmer as VP, make abortion great again. The Forester says the chances of Trump being sentenced behind bars just skyrocketed. Matt's collection says the ticket will be Big Mike, Obama, and Buttigieg. Wouldn't that be something? And Casey AMO says Biden won't go. The donors are too split to oust him. It seems like if this number is correct, because Steve seems to think that there was about 80 million people across all of the platforms in which it aired. The statement from CNN is making it sound, we'll clarify this on Monday. The statement from CNN is making it sound like it's fewer than 50 million people tuned in. It's kind of cast a pall over this hour, in my mind.
And there's no way all the other platforms, those clicks, are sitting down for an hour and a half watching the whole thing. That's not how those metrics are measured. So this is a low number.
We will be back at it again on Monday. We'll probably have some news then about presidential immunity, maybe some more news from the world of Joe Biden. Until then, Romans 8:28.